What's going on, guys? This is Chain Joku, and welcome to this episode of the Sneaker Principle Podcast. I think this is episode 32. For those of you who don't know, I'm on a challenge to do a podcast every day from January 1st all the way through December 30th to commemorate my 20 years in New York City as an educator. And also to challenge myself to really see what happens when I totally immerse myself in a daily practice of creating content. So here I am. Right now, I'm sitting here, and I'll be honest with you, I'm exhausted. Today's been a long day. I've been up since 3:45 this morning. Went to the gym, tried to drop my kids off at school, walked into the school building, and walked straight into a meeting with a family, which I knew was happening. But even though you know these things are happening, you don't know what to expect when you walk in there. So it was a good meeting. And then after that, the day pretty much took off. I had several emails I need to compose and send out. We have a big event happening in February. And we want to make sure we have the right people who are presenting and who are speaking at this event. Invited and having them accept the invitation, and also being able to put into place our contingency plan if they don't say yes, but also knowing that we're waiting on their acceptance so that we can also then invite other people who, depending on whether the first group of people say yes or no, might be the ones to kind of fill in those spaces. And it's definitely not like hey, if you couldn't get them, we were getting you. It's just that the way this program is going to be set up, certain people are kind of fit into what we're planning, and then there are others who can easily step in and fill the gap. And those people, I'm sure, will be honored to fill in the gap for the people who are trying to get there. So there's in no way us trying to, make anyone feel like, hey, you weren't good enough to be our first choice. It's all about chain of command, So planning that out. Then my after school program, even though in most schools you have a community school director, you have your CBO, but I'm also very involved in it because I'm making sure that our after school program is in alignment with our theme as a school. So there's a continuity throughout the whole entire offerings of our programs. So, working with my community school director, who's awesome, and making sure things are running seamlessly, and also getting ready for the spring semester when we're going to do a whole new campaign of recruiting to get kids into our after-school program. Then the normal stuff, meeting with my key team members, my coach, my academic dean, talk about instruction and all these other things that are just part of what you do. And sometimes it's crazy because you don't realize how many different things you have your hands in during the day. I remember when I worked in banking. I was a commercial loan agent, and I remember all I did all day long was just commercial loans. Yes, the variety was in the kind of loans, different kind of businesses, but at the end of the day, it was businesses that needed money. Same forms, same process, same credit check, same everything, pretty much throughout the whole entire day. So you got into a rhythm, okay, there was a pace, and you knew what was going to happen next. There were some surprises here and there, but they were never so divergent from what you were doing. Same thing in the military. You know what you're being trained for every single day. And when that thing comes, yes, it's still a shock to your system, but this is what I was trained for. So you kind of expect the same thing every single day. And I would imagine the only job that I would probably say kind of mirrors what we do. Actually, there's only 3 jobs, honestly. And I read an article years ago, actually when I first started in education, stating that the 3 most stressful jobs, and I really believe these jobs are not just stressful; they mimic each other, even though they're very different. Actually, I guess kind of different, but yeah, very different. A urban, I'll combine these two together. Firemen and police officers. The level of thinking you have to do negotiating spaces, walking into situations that you don't even know what you're walking into. That variety and constantly anticipating the worst or the best, or just not knowing. And then you have emergency room physicians, just people working in an emergency room. You don't know if walking through that door. You don't know if somebody has a bow and arrow in your chest, or if it's a child that's not breathing and they can't figure out what's going on. As a physician in that space, as a doctor, as a nurse, you're constantly, running through the Rolodex of experiences, trying to find a way to manage that space, and it's like nonstop, and then you have the urban school leader. I'm not trying to say that the principal or assistant principal is facing the same level of like chaotic stress the police officers or firefighters are going through. Like right now in California, I can only imagine what those people are going through in protecting people, protecting property, and trying to make sure that no one's left behind in these fires. And then I can only imagine how crazy the ERs are right now in Los Angeles, as people are being brought in for smoke inhalation, people who've been burned or whatever the case may be, or even just the stress of it at all. So imagine this doctor in that space, constantly negotiating what's coming into you. If I'll tell you this, in what I do, it's not, I respect, I will put on the same level, but it's not that far down. Because I shared this with one of my colleagues. I was like, the typical CEO of a company does not go through the same number of decisions that we have to make on a daily basis as school leaders. You don't deal with every little detail of your company. Unless you're a very small company, it's like you have 4 or 5 of you. I'm talking about this sized company that might have a staff of 30, 40, 50, or 60, or 100 people, which is not that not typical in most urban public schools. And at this point, we're talking about teachers and students. But when I'm talking about support staff, front office staff, cafeteria staff, custodial staff, all these people who still look to you as the building principal, like, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, this is what we have to keep you abreast of. Hey, this is why this is not going on. Like, you're just, nonstop. And the difference is between running a company and being in this, like, school setting is that literally you have to have some basic understanding of what's happening. You don't have the grace of, I don't know what you're talking about. So whether it's the boiler's down and the custodian's telling you, hey, this is what's happening, this, what's going on, and then we're having a conversation about like what could we do to keep the building warm and blah, blah, blah. Not to say that happened, and that would be a worse nightmare. I have been in a situation many, many years ago where a pipe burst. It was one of the coldest days, and a pipe burst and flooded the location where the school was. And it was kind of like, you had to kind of like step down. It wasn't the basement, but it was the first floor of a building, and so the water accumulated overnight. And when we got there, and everything was flooded, and we had to move about 200 kids through, like, I'm talking about 10, 5, maybe under 0 degrees, a couple of blocks to another school. And again, I wasn't the principal at the time. My principal, John, I remember just watching him negotiate this, and then have myself, the assistant, and the assistant principal gather these kids and teachers and whatever materials we could find and move them over to this building. This was early in the morning. This was like 8 o'clock in the morning. Move this many kids over there and then hold them all the way through 2:30. So we had, like, instruction happening in the auditorium, food being brought to us. Mind you, we were in another school's space. So what ended up happening is that school didn't get to use the full, they didn't get to use the full space because we were there. So now imagine that principal, the things he had to negotiate, with this, unscheduled, accommodation of another school. And imagine the meetings have to be canceled, the meetings that have to be had. The cafeteria workers have to make more food to accommodate this extra 100 Was it 100? No, no, it wasn't 100, but it was 61 kids per grade. So we were talking about roughly 180 kids. We were now in this other building. But think about this. Like, these are things you don't even think about. That most people who run institutions don't even think about. How much, that can happen in a small period of time and how many decisions you have to make. But at the end of the day, being a school leader in New York City, the buck stops with you. I'm sorry, I'm talking really fast, and my brain is just going through all these memories. And this particular one happened over 15 years ago. But again, it just shows you how diverse the problems that can come to you. But it's not all bad. It's not all bad problems. It's all the good things. Like this afternoon, I'm sitting in a meeting with my coach, and I'd like to keep my door open, and I could have sworn, as the kids were coming up from the cafeteria, about to go to their 6th period class, the number of kids who just walked into my office as I'm trying to meet with my coach. Hey, Mr. Njoku, hey, Mr. Like, later, I was like, hey, guys, I'm in a meeting, come back later. And I'm telling you, it must have been like 6 or 7 kids back to back to back, different grade levels and everything, who all had the same idea, walking to the office. And I was like, wow, like this doesn't stop. You see me smiling, or those of you listening to this, I'm smiling because at the end of the day, to create a space like that is so much fun. Where kids are so joyous and so excited to be in school. But not only that, the work of just managing this behemoth of organization we call schools, because I don't care how small the school is, those problems are real, those celebrations are real, all the good things that happen in the school are real. And but however, you have to know how to manage it. You know how to manage it. There are principals out there right now who struggle with that, and they're just managing that spend. There's some that do an amazing job, and some that are still growing. Like, I'm the kind of person where, for me, it's all I don't know how to put it. I'm not the best at organizing it in my head, but I know what it's supposed to feel like. And people might say, what do you mean? But you know what? You know what it's supposed to feel like. It's just the way my brain works. Like, my school is what we do. It's a lot of like, okay, this doesn't feel right. What do you think about this? Okay, because also you have to understand, not that I have to understand, but you have to understand that the school building is a living organism. So with all the different pieces of things that are happening, you have to make sure you have all your bases covered. All right, y'all. I feel like I'm starting to ramble. Call to action. Manage your work. Because you have to think on your feet all the time. And for some people, it is a huge stressor. Just being in a space between your emotions and the instability of what could happen and the unpredictability as well. And having to address many needs of multiple audiences, not knowing what's going to happen next. I'll tell you this: you can get good at thinking on your feet by just doing a few things, or at least being intentional about a few things. Your why, your core values, but your why. What is your why? What makes you come back to work every single day? Your core values. Ground yourself in those. So even when you have the worst of days, or you're just not having it, you can ask yourself, why am I here? And you're going to get an answer back. It's going to be in the form of your core value. I'm here because I am a love agent. I'm here because, I am determined to help a whole entire community, not repeat what was done to us in my community when I was whenever time that was. It's very important to ground yourself in your core values. Develop a mental model. Like, what is your mental model in this space? Like, what's your ideal? And for me, wow, I have fun. Even when I look like I'm not having fun, I am having fun because sometimes it just feels like a giant puzzle that only I can put together, and that's what I do. I have fun. I engage in my own thinking and trying to find solutions to things. And the next one is practicing situational awareness. Being able to read a room. To read a room is very, very important. Because when you're able to read the room and you understand what's going on, even when it's not been spoken, you know how to manage your time, manage your energy, so you can maximize yourself for those you work with and for yourself. So just be aware of what's going on around you. Pay attention. Don't always be the first to speak. Sometimes you just gotta sit down back and just be quiet and listen until someone comes to you and ask, and and calls out on you. It's best to just fall back and just listen and take it all in and make your determinations and your assessments based on a spirit of calmness. And kind of connecting back to that, take a breath. I tell people all the time, breathe, breathe. I tell students of mine, breathe. You know, um, you gotta take a breath before you act. Before you do anything, step back and woosah and ask yourself, what is it I'm seeing? Am I seeing what I'm really seeing? What is the best approach to this thing that keeps everybody safe? And whatever it is, you gotta take that breath. And the one thing that I do, and I'll be honest with you, doing this helps me, is reflecting and learning. I know I'm not perfect by any means, but I believe by taking that breath, stopping, leaning back and asking yourself, what am I seeing? Or even yet, after something's already happened, sitting back and saying, what happened? How could have this been different or better? And using that space to learn about your environment, learn about you, being emotionally intelligent to figure out how to resolve issues or deal with situations where you don't find yourself drowning in analysis paralysis, but rather you are thriving in a space of just joyous, on your feet, quick thinking, and winning and making sure that everybody's good and everybody's happy. Yo, Uche Njoku, a very, very tight Uche Njoku. I hope I made sense throughout this podcast. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate y'all. And have a good night. Be well.